Jobless. Worthless. A waste of the Hargrove name. Vivienne's words cut through me as security escorted me from the penthouse with one suitcase and $67 to my name. My husband Damien stood silent, watching his mother destroy me without lifting a finger to stop her. 4 years later, I stepped off a private jet in Alexander Hargrove, Damien's half-brother, the son Vivienne had hidden for decades. The look on her face when she realized I'd found her greatest secret? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're a subscriber, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Priceless. Sign here, here, and here. Vivienne Hargrove's perfectly manicured nails, painted in her signature burgundy shade, tapped impatiently on the mahogany dining table. 3 stacks of documents sat before me, divorce papers, the prenuptial agreement I'd signed 5 years ago, and a non-disclosure agreement with terms so strict they could bankrupt me if I breathed a word about the Hargrove family. Behind her, Celeste stood with her ever-present tablet, documenting everything. The crystal chandelier above us, the one Vivienne had imported from Prague, cast sharp shadows across the papers that would erase me from this life. You have 90 minutes to pack, Vivienne announced, checking her Patek Philippe watch. Security will assist you if you're not ready by then. The morning had started differently. I'd woken at 5 a.m., as I had every day for the past 5 years, to work on my design portfolio in the small office Damien had grudgingly allowed me. My graphic design freelance work had dried up after we married. Vivienne had made it clear that Hargrove wives don't work. But I'd kept my skills sharp in secret, creating logos and branding packages late at night when everyone slept. At 6:30, Damien had emerged from our bedroom. We'd stopped sharing a bed 8 months ago, dressed in his charcoal Tom Ford suit. He'd scrolled through his phone during breakfast, not once meeting my eyes. I'd thought it was just another morning of cold indifference. I hadn't realized he was avoiding eye contact because he knew what was coming. At 8 a.m., I'd been organizing my design files when I heard Vivienne's key in the lock. She'd stopped knocking 2 years ago. This penthouse in downtown Seattle's most exclusive building had our names on the deed, but it had never really been mine. She'd walked in with Celeste and a man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as Robert Finch, the Hargrove family attorney. That's when I knew. Nora, Vivienne had said, her voice as cold as the Puget Sound in January. We need to discuss your future. Or rather, your lack of one with this family. Damien had appeared from his study, carrying the papers that would end our marriage. He'd been preparing them for weeks, apparently. While I'd been redesigning a small bakery's brand identity for $500, while I'd been trying to rebuild my career in secret, while I'd been attempting to salvage something of myself, he'd been planning my removal. You're worthless to us, Damien said now, the words falling from his mouth as easily as his usual discussion of property values and investment portfolios. 5 years, Nora. 5 years of mother trying to shape you into something presentable. 5 years of embarrassment at every charity gala, every business dinner, every social function. I looked between them, trying to understand how we'd reached this point. Just last month, I'd attended the Hargrove Foundation's annual fundraiser as requested. I'd worn the approved Valentino gown, made appropriate conversation with the tech billionaires and real estate moguls, smiled until my face ached. But apparently, it hadn't been enough. It had never been enough. The freelance work was supposed to stop after the wedding, Vivienne added, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light as she gestured dismissively. A brief hobby before you assumed your proper role as a Hargrove wife. But you've made it clear where your priorities lie. Last week, you missed the hospital board luncheon to meet with some small business owner about a logo. The meeting had been with Maria Santos, a single mother trying to launch an organic skincare line. She'd saved for months to afford my modest fee, and I'd promised to help her create a brand identity that could compete with corporate giants. In that moment, her dreams had mattered more than champagne and small talk with hospital donors. I was building something, I said, finding my voice. Helping someone create a future for her children. Vivienne laughed, a sound like ice cracking. That's exactly the problem. You think you're some sort of savior for these people when you can't even manage to be a proper wife. You're an embarrassment to the Hargrove legacy. Celeste had been documenting everything on her tablet, taking photos of me in my simple wrap dress. One I'd bought with my own money, not Hargrove funds. Vivienne began listing my failures, each one punctuated by a flash from Celeste's camera. Wrong art in the entryway. Design magazines instead of architectural digests. A handwritten thank you card from Maria Santos on our Sub-Zero refrigerator. The worst offense, apparently. Evidence of my poverty mindset. The prenuptial agreement is quite clear, Mr. Finch said, speaking for the first time. His voice was practiced, detached. In the event of divorce due to failure to fulfill marital expectations, Mrs. Hargrove, excuse me, Ms. Castellano, retains only personal items brought into the marriage and any income earned independently of Hargrove resources. I'd signed that prenup at 26, in love and certain we'd never need it. Damien had presented it as a formality, something all Hargrove wives signed. I'd been too dazzled by the fairy tale, the penthouse, the luxury, the promise of a life where I'd never struggle again, to read the fine print. Now, every clause designed to protect the Hargrove fortune stood ready to leave me with almost nothing. What about my design equipment? I asked, thinking of the laptop and drawing tablet I used for my work. Purchased with Hargrove money, Vivienne said coldly. It stays. My portfolio files? If they're on that laptop, they belong to the family now. You should have thought about that before using our resources for your little hobby. I stood there in the living room where I'd tried so hard to belong, surrounded by Italian marble and people who looked at me like I was already gone. The morning sun through the floor-to-ceiling windows illuminated the space like a stage set. Perhaps that's all it had ever been, a performance where I'd never learned my lines. Sign the papers, Nora, Damien said, impatience creeping into his voice. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The Mont Blanc pen felt heavy in my hand, a gift from Vivienne on my wedding day. Every Hargrove wife needs a proper pen, she'd said then. Now I was using it to write myself out of their story. As I signed my name, Nora Castellano, not Hargrove, never really Hargrove, I thought about Maria Santos waiting for her logo files, about the small business owners I'd been quietly helping, about the creative work I'd been doing in the shadows of this gilded cage. Those people had valued my work when the Hargroves had seen only worthlessness. You have 87 minutes, Celeste announced, starting a timer on her phone. I climbed the spiral staircase to our bedroom, no, to the bedroom that had never truly been mine, with Vivienne's Louboutin heels clicking behind me like a countdown timer. Each step felt like walking toward an execution. In the master suite, I pulled out the battered rolling suitcase I'd brought to this marriage 5 years ago. The fabric was faded, a cheap thing I'd bought at a discount store during college. It looked pathetically small next to the walk-in closet filled with designer clothes. Only items you brought into the marriage or purchased with independently earned money, Vivienne reminded me, positioning herself in the doorway like a prison warden. Celeste will verify everything. My hands trembled as I reached for my old jeans, the ones I'd worn to design school, with paint stains Damien had always hated. My university sweatshirt. 3 simple dresses I'd owned before the wedding. The comfortable sneakers I'd hidden in the back of the closet because they weren't appropriate for a Hargrove. Everything else, the Chanel suits, the Jimmy Choo heels, the silk blouses, had been gifts from the family. Carefully chosen to transform me into their vision of acceptable. The jewelry box stays, Celeste said, placing a red sticker on it before I could even approach. All Hargrove family pieces. I hadn't planned to take any of it. The heavy diamonds and cold sapphires had always felt like shackles anyway. Instead, I retrieved the small silver locket my grandmother had given me, the one I'd hidden because Vivienne had called it costume jewelry unworthy of display. 60 minutes, Celeste announced. As I folded my meager belongings, my mind drifted to 6 months ago, to the fertility specialist appointment that had been the beginning of the end. Dr. Nina Sharma's office had been all muted grays and soft lighting, designed to comfort desperate couples. But Damien had been anything but comforted. He'd sat texting throughout Dr. Sharma's explanation of our options. I'd recognized the number appearing repeatedly on the screen. It showed up constantly on our phone bills, always explained away as business contacts. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The test results show no issues on either side, Dr. Sharma had said kindly. With the right approach, IVF, possibly hormone treatments, your chances are excellent. Damien had finally looked up when she mentioned costs. 70,000 for the first round. Possibly more if we need additional cycles. His expression had shifted, the same look he got when a property deal went sideways. Cold calculation. We'd left without scheduling anything. In the parking garage, surrounded by concrete and echoing footsteps, he'd loosened his tie like it was strangling him. Mother wants grandchildren, but this is insane, he'd said. Do you know what 70,000 could do for our investment portfolio? And the hormone schedules would destroy our social calendar. I have client dinners, golf tournaments, the summer house season. The way he'd said it, like potential children were just another inconvenient expense, had made something crack inside me. But I'd forced it down, told myself he was stressed, that the Damien I'd fallen in love with was still in there somewhere. The mind has a remarkable capacity for self-deception when the truth is too painful. My phone buzzed. Sofia Mendez, my college roommate and the only person who still knew me as Nora Castellano instead of Mrs. Hargrove. Heard what happened. Coffee tomorrow. Same place we used to go. 45 minutes. I stared at my graphic design portfolio, 5 years of work, stored on the laptop Vivienne was confiscating. Logos for small businesses. Branding packages for startups. Website designs for entrepreneurs who couldn't afford big agencies. All of it, gone. Wait, I said, a desperate idea forming. The USB drive in my desk drawer. My personal one, from before the marriage. Can I at least transfer my files? Vivienne and Celeste exchanged glances. No electronics, Vivienne said firmly. The files could contain proprietary Hargrove information. Everything on that laptop is family property now. Years of creative work vanished because I'd been stupid enough to use their equipment. 30 minutes. The wedding dress hung in its preservation bag at the back of the closet. I'd looked at it only once since our first anniversary, unable to stomach the memories. My hand reached for it automatically, not because I wanted it, but because it represented something I'd believed in once. Family archive, Celeste said, pulling it from my grasp. Mrs. Hargrove insists it's part of the historical record. I watched her carry it away like she was confiscating evidence. It had been my dress, my day, my hope. Now it was just another artifact in the Hargrove Museum of Controlled Perfection. My suitcase was barely half full when I finished. 5 years of marriage reduced to some old clothes, a few books, and my grandmother's locket. Everything else had been costume pieces in a play I'd never understood. Final inspection, Celeste said, making me open the suitcase. She photographed the contents methodically, as if I were a thief being searched at the border. 73 minutes total, she announced with what sounded like disappointment at my efficiency. Downstairs, Damien had vanished, probably to his office to wash his hands of me as cleanly as any terminated contract. Vivienne stood by the elevator, checking her phone. The divorce papers sat on the entry table, completed and witnessed. My key fobbed to the building beside them. Before you go, Vivienne said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. You'll sign one more document. Mr. Finch produced the NDA. Its terms were crushing: no discussion of family business, no mention of family members in any public forum, no revelation of any information learned during the marriage. Violation would result in a lawsuit that would destroy whatever pathetic life I managed to build. I signed it. What choice did I have? The elevator ride down felt like descending into exile. Marcus, the doorman who'd greeted me warmly every morning for 5 years, stood rigid by his desk. His eyes fixed on a point above my head. Ms. Castellano, he said formally. Your building access has been revoked. Please surrender your fob. I placed it on his desk with shaking fingers. 5 years of coming home to this building, and now I was permanently locked out. The taxi stand is outside, he said to the air beside my shoulder. I dragged my suitcase through the lobby's marble expanse. Mrs. Wellington emerged from the elevator with her miniature poodle, saw me, and immediately turned toward the mailroom. We'd served on the building's holiday committee together, had shared wine at resident mixers. Now she crossed the lobby to avoid me. Outside, the Seattle drizzle had started, typical November weather. I stood on the sidewalk with my single suitcase, watching taxis pass without stopping. The joint account showed frozen when I checked my banking app. The emergency cash in my wallet totaled $67. Finally, a taxi pulled over. The driver helped with my suitcase, pretending not to notice when I counted my bills 3 times to make sure I had enough. "Where to?" he asked. I gave him the address of the cheapest motel I could find on my phone, a place in South Seattle where the Hargrove influence didn't reach, where their name meant nothing. As we pulled away, I turned back to see the penthouse building growing smaller. Somewhere up there, Vivienne was probably already calling interior designers to erase any trace of my existence. The Space Needle pierced the gray sky in the distance, unchanged and indifferent to my small destruction. Everything I'd built, everything I'd believed in, everything I'd sacrificed, gone in 90 minutes. But as the city blurred past the taxi window, one thought crystallized with startling clarity. For the first time in 5 years, I could breathe. The Emerald Inn was exactly what $49 per night bought in South Seattle: cigarette-stained walls, a mattress that sagged in the middle, and a bathroom where the grout had given up years ago. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let myself fall apart. The sobs came in waves, 5 years of suppressed emotion pouring out in an empty room that smelled of industrial cleaner and broken dreams. $18 left after paying for 2 nights. No job. No portfolio. No references. My grandmother's locket was the only thing of real value I still owned. Inside were 2 tiny photos, my grandmother at 20, fierce and determined, and my mother at my age, laughing at her art school graduation. Both women who'd built lives on their own terms. "I'm sorry," I whispered to their faces. I forgot who I was supposed to be. The next morning, I met Sophia at Café Umbria near Pike Place Market. She ordered us both coffee without asking, remembering exactly how I took it after all these years. "I should have said something sooner," she began. "About Isla Pembroke." Sophia showed me photos from social media, Damien at restaurants, galleries, weekend getaways to San Juan Islands. Always with the same blonde woman whose tech fortune made the Hargrove wealth look modest. A year-long affair, minimum. Everyone in their circle knew, Sophia said quietly. "I tried to tell you twice, but Vivienne had her lawyers send me a cease and desist." I stared at the images, feeling nothing where I'd expected pain. I'm relieved. That's what I realized last night. I'm not heartbroken. I'm free. When Sophia offered money, I refused. The NDA made it too risky. But I accepted something else, the name of a restaurant looking for help. That afternoon, I walked into Sakura House with my grandmother's locket as collateral and my last shred of dignity. Mr. Takashi studied me for a long moment, my expensive but outdated clothes, my red-rimmed eyes, my desperate hope. "Sophia called," he said simply. "You need work." "I need server for evening shift. Minimum wage plus tips." "I'll take it," I said immediately. He nodded slowly, then placed a bowl of ramen in front of me. "But today, you look hungry. Sit." Mrs. Takashi emerged from the kitchen, spoke rapidly in Japanese to her husband, gesturing at me. "My wife says you have sad eyes," Mr. Takashi translated. "She wants to know if you have place to stay." "A motel. For 2 more nights." More rapid Japanese. Mr. Takashi sighed. "We have room above restaurant. Small. 400 a month, but you pay when you can. My wife says good people in bad time deserve good people helping them." I started crying again, right there at the table. Mrs. Takashi came around and patted my shoulder, murmuring something soothing in Japanese. That evening, they showed me the tiny room above Sakura House, barely space for a futon, a small table, and a hot plate. But it had a window overlooking the alley and people who'd shown me kindness without asking for anything in return. My first shift at Sakura House was humbling. I dropped 2 trays, mixed up orders, and forgot to refill water glasses. But I'd made $47 in tips, money I'd earned through my own effort. Mrs. Takashi brought me dinner and sat across from me, watching me eat with the intensity of someone who believed food could heal wounds deeper than hunger. "Kenji needs logo," she said in halting English, pulling out her phone. "For gaming channel. YouTube. You make?" I stared at her. "I don't have the equipment. No computer, no software." She nodded toward the small desk. "Kenji has extra laptop. Old, but works. He brings tomorrow. You make logo, yes? He pays $50. Kenji appeared the next morning with an ancient MacBook Pro. The screen had a crack, and it wheezed when it booted up, but it worked. That afternoon, between shifts, I designed Kenji's logo. A sleek fusion of Japanese characters and gaming imagery, modern but respectful. My fingers remembered skills I'd feared I'd lost. When I showed him, his eyes went wide. "This is amazing. Better than anything I could buy online." He paid me in cash, 2 20s and a 10, then posted the logo reveal on his YouTube channel, logo design by Nora Castellano, seriously talented designer. DM for her info. By the next morning, I had 3 messages from small content creators asking about my rates. But the real miracle came that night. An email from an address I didn't recognize. "Your portfolio, saved." Inside was a message from Marcus, the doorman. "Ms. Castellano, I couldn't stand by and watch them destroy your work. Before they wiped the laptop, I copied everything. Your portfolio, your client files, all of it. They can't know I helped. Good luck. M." Attached were dozens of files. Every logo, every design, every piece of creative work I'd thought was lost forever. I clutched my grandmother's locket and whispered to the ceiling, "Okay. Now we rebuild." I started taking commissions in gaps between restaurant shifts. A Twitch streamer needed a banner, $75. A local food blogger wanted a header, $100. A small boutique needed business cards, $120. The work trickled in slowly, but it was mine. 3 weeks into my new life, I discovered the public library's business center. Free computers, free Wi-Fi, free printing. The central library became my second office. That's where I met Ray Crew. He looked homeless, torn jacket, backpack held together with duct tape, weathered face. He sat at the computer next to mine, typing with focused intensity. I was struggling with a pricing spreadsheet for a sustainable fashion consultation project. The numbers weren't making sense. "You're calculating it wrong," Ray said suddenly. "Your overhead percentage doesn't account for software subscriptions or equipment depreciation." Ray Crew had been a financial analyst at a major investment firm before addiction cost him everything. His mind for numbers remained razor-sharp even as his life had crumbled. He'd been sober for 8 months, living in a shelter, rebuilding one day at a time. We made an unspoken deal. I helped him update his resume and design a professional portfolio. He taught me about business fundamentals, profit margins, scaling strategies. "Never undercharge," he said firmly, restructuring my entire pricing model. "When you undervalue yourself, clients assume your work is worth less. Charge what you're worth, then exceed expectations." Between Ray's financial guidance and my growing client base, I started seeing a path forward. Not just survival, but actual growth. Sophia checked in weekly. For weeks after my exile, she arrived with something besides coffee, a flash drive. "I shouldn't be doing this," she said, looking over her shoulder. "If anyone finds out, Vivienne's lawyers will destroy me." The flash drive contained Hargrove Properties' financial records. Not surface-level reports, but detailed accounting showing the luxury real estate division was hemorrhaging money. Damien had been covering losses with creative accounting. "The Aurora Tower," Sophia explained. Their signature waterfront development. 6 months behind schedule, 20 million over budget, 3 major anchor tenants lost. They're burning through cash reserves to maintain the illusion of success. She showed me email threads between board members questioning the project's viability, contracts with investors that hadn't been renewed, competitors eating their market share in sustainable luxury developments. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. Sophia looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "Because sustainable luxury is the future of real estate, and the Hargroves are still building like it's 2010. Someone with vision could capture that market." She left the flash drive on the table, an accident that wasn't an accident at all. That night, I sat in my tiny room above Sakura House, studying the files. I saw exactly what Sophia meant. Their developments were glass and steel and traditional luxury, tone-deaf to the massive shift toward sustainable, eco-conscious living. Verde Luxe. The name came to me at 2 a.m., a fusion of green and luxury that captured everything the market wanted and the Hargroves couldn't provide. I started sketching. Not just logos, but entire concepts. Sustainable fashion consulting. Design services for green businesses. A platform connecting environmental entrepreneurs with designers who understood their values. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Ms. Castellano? This is Ethan Cross. Kenji Takashi showed me your work. I'm developing an eco-friendly clothing line and need someone who understands both aesthetics and sustainability. Could we meet?" I looked around my tiny room, the cracked laptop, sketches covering every surface, financial models Ray had helped me create. 6 weeks ago, I'd had nothing but $67 and a suitcase. Now I had skills, allies, opportunity, and something the Hargroves had never given me, belief in my own worth. "Yes," I said into the phone. "Let's meet." Ethan Cross looked nothing like the tech executives who'd circulated through Hargrove galas. He showed up to our meeting wearing worn jeans and flannel, his presentation materials in a canvas messenger bag. "I've been trying to crack the sustainable fashion market for 2 years, he said, spreading fabric samples across our cafe table. "I have the materials, organic cotton, recycled polyester, plant-based dyes. But I can't get the branding right." I studied his samples. The quality was exceptional. "You're trying to appeal to 2 different markets, environmental purists and luxury consumers. You need to merge them instead." For 3 hours, we worked. I sketched logo concepts that balanced earthiness with elegance, designed packaging that screamed premium while communicating sustainability. "This is exactly what I couldn't articulate," he said, staring at my final concept. "How much for a complete brand identity package?" I thought of Ray's advice about worth. 5,000. Done. "But I want more than that, partner with me. Not just as a designer, as a co-founder." Verde Luxe. He said the name I'd only written in my sketchbook. "Kenji showed me your concept notes. It's brilliant. Sustainable luxury consulting, eco-brand development. It's the exact gap in the market. I have nothing to invest. You have the vision I lack. I have the funding and industry connections. Equal partners. 50-50. We filed Verde Luxe LLC papers that week. Ethan handled legalities while I designed everything: brand identity, website, pitch materials. We worked from my tiny room above Sakura House, the ancient laptop wheezing through rendering while teriyaki scents drifted upward. Mrs. Takashi adopted our business as her personal mission, bringing food during late-night sessions. Ray helped us build financial projections. "You're not selling design services," he explained. "You're selling transformation." The breakthrough came at midnight on a Thursday. I'd created a presentation for sustainable fashion brands, explaining how Verde Luxe could revolutionize their market positioning. The words flowed passionately, clearly, purposefully. "That's it," Ethan said, energized. "That's exactly what brands are desperate for but can't articulate themselves." We launched our website at 3 a.m. By dawn, we had our first inquiry. By noon, 3 more. By week's end, 5 consultation meetings scheduled. One inquiry came from an unexpected source, a catering company I'd worked for briefly. I have another event next weekend. Double rate if you can work it. The event was at a waterfront estate, serving Seattle's elite at a pharmaceutical company retreat. The pay was substantial enough that I couldn't refuse, even though every instinct warned me away from that world. I showed up in black server's whites, invisible among the wealthy. That's when I saw her. Isla Penbrook by the infinity pool, her hand possessive on Damien's arm. I froze with my champagne tray. The education division is hemorrhaging money, Isla said, her voice carrying. Hargrove Properties can't adapt to sustainable development trends. They're still building glass towers while everyone wants green certification. Her friend asked about their relationship. Damien's useful for now, Isla said, taking another drink. But once his mother's real estate empire collapses, and it will, within 18 months, I'll need someone with actual vision. I stood invisible, gathering intelligence about the exact market gap Verde Lux was positioned to fill. The Aurora Tower is a disaster, Isla continued. 6 months behind, bleeding cash. Vivienne's too proud to admit they bet everything on traditional luxury. Meanwhile, every developer is pivoting to sustainable design. There's a fortune waiting for whoever can deliver eco-conscious luxury at scale. When I got home, Ethan was waiting, excited. I just got off the phone with Marcus Chen. He runs Eco-Urban Development. They're looking for a design consultancy that understands sustainable luxury. They want to meet next week. I told him everything I'd overheard. We stayed up until dawn, researching every failed Hargrove project, every market shift toward environmental consciousness. We're positioning ourselves to capture the exact market the Hargroves are losing, Ethan said as sunrise painted Elliott Bay gold. Ray stopped by with revised projections, his hands trembling. Conservative estimate, if you execute this right, Verde Lux could be generating 7 figures within 2 years. The meeting with Eco-Urban Development took place in their LEED-certified South Lake Union offices. Marcus Chen greeted us, silver-streaked hair, confident energy. I've been following your work, he said, leading us to a conference room overlooking Lake Union. Kenji Takashi's father showed me your portfolio. He spread architectural plans across the table, a massive waterfront development. 200 units, net zero energy, green roofs. But we need a design vision that makes eco-conscious living feel aspirational, not sacrificial. For 2 hours, Ethan and I presented our approach. Concepts where sustainability merged seamlessly with luxury, materials both beautiful and responsible. The Hargroves pitched us last month, Marcus said suddenly. 47 PowerPoint slides about prestige and legacy. When I asked about sustainable design experience, they suggested solar panels as an eco-upgrade package. Ethan and I exchanged glances. They don't understand that sustainability isn't an add-on, I said. It's the foundation. Marcus leaned back, studying us. You're new. Small portfolio. I'd be taking a risk. You'd be taking a risk on the old guard too, Ethan countered. They're building for a market that's dying. We're building for the one emerging. Marcus smiled. The contract is worth $800,000. 60 days to prove yourselves with the first phase, lobby and common areas. Nail that, and the rest is yours. We signed that afternoon. News spread quickly through Seattle's sustainable development community. Within a week, 3 more inquiries. Ray helped us evaluate each, teaching us to recognize which clients would fuel growth versus drain resources. Quality over quantity, he insisted, turning down 2 projects. Every project should move you toward your vision, not just your bank account. We rented a small office in Pioneer Square. Mrs. Takashi cried when we told her, insisting we still come to dinner. Success doesn't mean forgetting who helped you. The work consumed us. 18-hour days developing the eco-urban design package. Ethan sourced materials, reclaimed teak, recycled glass countertops, living moss installations. I created the visual language that made sustainability feel like luxury. Kenji became our unofficial social media manager, documenting our process. His gaming channel had grown to 50,000 subscribers, and, behind the scenes, videos went viral. One hit 200,000 views. Sophia continued feeding intelligence through encrypted messages. 6 weeks after the eco-urban contract, she arrived with news that made my hands shake. Vivienne's calling an emergency board meeting. The Aurora Tower is officially a disaster. $3 million a month in losses, investors demanding answers. She showed me internal emails, board members questioning Vivienne's leadership, major stakeholders threatening to pull out. They're desperate enough to approach competition for partnerships, Sophia said. Desperate enough to swallow pride and admit they need help. The eco-urban lobby reveal happened on a rainy Tuesday in March. Marcus had invited industry press, potential investors, key players in sustainable development. Our design transformed a standard lobby into a living ecosystem, vertical gardens, reclaimed wood, lighting mimicking natural circadian rhythms. This is what the future looks like, Marcus announced. Thanks to Verde Lux, we're proving sustainable doesn't mean sacrifice. By week's end, 7 new consultation requests. By month's end, 3 major contracts worth a combined $2 million. Ray updated our projections, hands trembling. At this trajectory, Verde Lux will be valued at $15 million within 18 months. 7 months ago, I'd had $67. Now I was building something worth millions. That night, Ethan found me on the office roof, looking at the Seattle skyline. You've been quiet since the projections, he said. I keep thinking about what happens when Vivienne realizes, I admitted. When she understands the worthless daughter-in-law she threw out is now the only person who can save her empire. You don't owe them anything. I know. But part of me wants them to ask. Wants them to need me. I turned to face him. Is that petty? It's human, Ethan said. But remember, you didn't build Verde Lux for them. You built it for you. My phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Castellano? This is Jennifer Parks from Hargrove Properties. Mrs. Hargrove would like to schedule a meeting regarding a potential partnership opportunity. I looked at Ethan. They called. Sooner than expected. Tell Ray to prepare a presentation. If Vivienne Hargrove wants Verde Lux's help, she's going to pay premium rates. How premium? I smiled. Expensive enough that she'll understand exactly what throwing me out cost her. The meeting was in 2 weeks. I had work to do. The formal invitation arrived by courier 3 days later. Thick cream cardstock, embossed Hargrove Properties logo, my name written in calligraphy that probably cost more than my first week's tips at Sakura House. Ms. Nora Castellano and guest are cordially invited to the Hargrove Properties annual gala. An evening celebrating innovation in luxury development. The Fairmont Olympic Hotel, Grand Ballroom. Black tie required. Ethan read it over my shoulder in our Pioneer Square office. They're not even pretending it's just a business meeting. Vivienne never does anything without an audience, I said, studying the invitation. This is strategic. She wants me to see their world again, remember what I lost, feel small. Will it work? I thought about the tiny room above Sakura House where I'd rebuilt myself, about the clients who valued my vision, about the business we'd created from nothing. No. But she doesn't know that yet. Ray arrived for our strategy session, carrying his worn briefcase filled with market analysis. I've been analyzing Hargrove Properties' public filings. The Aurora Tower isn't their only problem. They're over-leveraged on 3 other traditional luxury projects. If even one more fails, they're facing bankruptcy within 12 months. Sophia had sent additional intelligence, encrypted messages through a secure app. The Hargrove board was fracturing. Half wanted to cut losses and sell off assets. The other half believed Vivienne could pivot to sustainable development if she found the right partner. They need you more than they're willing to admit, Ethan observed. That's why the gala invitation instead of a boardroom meeting. Vivienne's trying to maintain the upper hand psychologically. Then we change the psychology, I said. We don't just attend. We make an entrance that reframes the entire dynamic. Over the next week, we planned meticulously. The dress came first, a stunning emerald gown made from recycled ocean plastics, designed by a young artist who'd built her brand on ethical luxury. The fabric moved like silk, and every thread represented the values Verde Luxe stood for. Mrs. Takashi insisted on helping me prepare the night of the gala. She came to my apartment. I'd moved to a small but proper one-bedroom in Fremont, with her sewing kit and determination. You walk in there like queen, she said, adjusting the dress's shoulders. They threw out treasure, too stupid to know value. You show them what they lost. Kenji had other ideas. You need to document this. Let me film your arrival. Verde Luxe's social media should show the founder attending major industry events. The transportation was Ethan's contribution. At 7:30 p.m., a Tesla Model S pulled up, fully electric, luxury without compromise. But the real statement came when Marcus from Eco-Urban Development stepped out wearing a chauffeur's cap and grinning. Couldn't let you make this entrance alone, he said. Besides, several Hargrove board members will be there. They should see that Verde Luxe has serious backing. The Fairmont Olympics entrance blazed with lights. Valets rushed to handle arriving Bentleys and Maseratis. Our electric Tesla drew curious looks. Ethan emerged in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, sustainable fabrics indistinguishable from traditional formal wear. Marcus removed his cap to reveal his own formal attire. Ready? Ethan asked, offering his arm. I took it, feeling the emerald dress catch the light. Kenji filmed from a discreet distance. Inside, the grand ballroom hadn't changed. Crystal chandeliers, marble columns, the suffocating atmosphere of old money. But I had changed. Everything had changed. An usher approached with a tablet. Names, please. Nora Castellano, Verde Luxe LLC, I said clearly. Plus 2 guests, Ethan Cross, co-founder, and Marcus Chen, Eco-Urban Development. The usher's fingers trembled as he typed. He glanced up at me, then at his tablet, then back. Whatever notes were attached to my name had been interesting. The announcer will call your names at the entrance. We moved to the top of the grand staircase. Below, 300 people in designer clothing sipped champagne. I scanned the crowd. Damien stood near the bar, Isla Penbrook attached to his side. He looked older, stress lines around his eyes. Vivienne held court near the mayor's table, signature pearls gleaming, surrounded by admirers. Her performance of success flawless as always. Neither had seen me yet. The announcer checked her tablet and her eyes went wide. She looked at me, then at her notes, then back. Ready, she whispered. I nodded. She stepped to the microphone, her voice carrying across the ballroom with trained clarity. Ms. Nora Castellano, co-founder and creative director of Verde Luxe Sustainable Design. Mr. Ethan Cross, co-founder and CEO of Verde Luxe. Mr. Marcus Chen, Eco-Urban Development. The conversation didn't stop all at once. It rippled outward like a stone dropped in still water. Faces turned, recognition dawning in waves. Damien's champagne glass froze halfway to his lips, his face cycling through confusion to recognition to something that might have been fear. Isla's practiced smile faltered as she tried to place me. But Vivienne's reaction was what I'd been waiting for. She stood at her table, her laugh dying mid-sound, her hand clutching her pearl necklace. For 3 full seconds, her legendary composure cracked completely. We descended the stairs slowly, deliberately. My emerald dress caught the light with every step. The crowd parted naturally, creating a path. At the bottom, Damien materialized, cutting through guests. Isla followed, her gold Versace suddenly looking garish next to my eco-conscious elegance. Nora. Damien's voice cracked on my name, loud enough for surrounding guests to hear. You're here. Clearly, I said, my voice calm. Up close, I could see the strain around his eyes, the trembling hands. But Verde Luxe, that's you? Isla's voice pitched high with disbelief. It is, Ethan answered smoothly. Ms. Castellano built it from the ground up. Quite successfully, as it turns out. Marcus added casually, Verde Luxe is currently leading the sustainable luxury design market in the Pacific Northwest. Impressive growth for 7 months. Damien's face went pale. 7 months. You started this, right after. After you threw me out with $67? I supplied helpfully, aware that a circle of guests was now openly listening. Yes, exactly then. Vivienne approached, her recovery complete, her armor rebuilt. But I could see the cracks underneath. Nora, she said, attempting warmth that came out cold. What a surprise. We had no idea you were involved in, what was it? Verde Luxe? Sustainable luxury design and consulting, I said clearly. We specialize in eco-conscious development. The market you've been struggling to understand. Her smile was ice. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private. I'm comfortable here, I replied. Unless you're not. The circle of onlookers had grown. Business leaders, investors, society figures, all watching the collision of Vivienne Hargrove's carefully constructed world with the woman she discarded. The business discussion can wait, Vivienne said, her voice tight with forced civility. Tonight is about celebration. Perhaps you'd like to see the presentation about our new initiatives. Actually, Marcus interjected smoothly, I'm quite interested in those initiatives. Especially after your pitch to Eco-Urban last month. The one about adding solar panels as an eco-upgrade package. Vivienne's composure flickered. Several board members in the crowd shifted uncomfortably, they clearly knew about that failed pitch. That was a preliminary concept, she said sharply. It revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of the market, Marcus continued, his tone professional but pointed. Which is why Eco-Urban chose Verde Luxe instead. Their approach demonstrated actual comprehension of sustainable luxury, not just greenwashing traditional excess. A board member I recognized, Thomas Whitfield, Hargrove Properties CFO, stepped forward. Ms. Castellano, your firm secured the Eco-Urban contract. The $800,000 project? Initial phase, I confirmed. We've since been awarded the full development design. $2 million total. Thomas's eyes widened. He looked at Vivienne, then back at me, pieces clearly connecting in his mind. The ex-daughter-in-law they'd thrown out had captured the exact contract they'd failed to win. Damien found his voice, attempting damage control. That's impressive, Nora. Really? We should discuss potential collaboration. Why? I interrupted, my voice carrying across the circle of listeners. 7 months ago, you told me I was worthless. That my design work was a hobby, embarrassing to the Hargrove name. What changed? The crowd had gone silent, champagne glasses frozen mid-sip. I was wrong, Damien said, desperation creeping into his voice. We were all wrong. You've clearly proven yourself. To whom? I asked. To you? To your mother? I don't need your validation anymore, Damien. I stopped needing it the moment you handed me divorce papers and watched your mother photograph my humiliation. Isla's face had gone pale. She was realizing, perhaps for the first time, that the worthless ex-wife was now a legitimate threat to her carefully planned future. Vivienne recovered quickly, switching tactics. Nora, I understand you're hurt. We handled the separation poorly. You didn't handle a separation, Ethan cut in, his voice cold. You orchestrated a destruction. There's a difference. And now you need what she built, Marcus added. How convenient that tonight's gala invitation arrived right after your board meeting about the Aurora Tower disaster. Thomas Whitfield's expression confirmed the hit. This was about desperation, not reconciliation. Perhaps we should move this to the conference suite, Vivienne suggested, her voice strained. This isn't appropriate. No, I said firmly. You made my humiliation public. Celeste documented it, remember? Photos for the family archive. This conversation stays public too. Celeste materialized from the crowd, her tablet absent but her face stricken. She wouldn't meet my eyes. The sustainable luxury market is worth billions, I continued, addressing not just the Hargroves but the entire circle of industry leaders watching. But it requires actual commitment to environmental responsibility, not superficial gestures. It requires understanding that consumers want ethics and aesthetics together, not one or the other. I pulled out my phone, bringing up Verde Luxe's portfolio. This is what we've built in 7 months. 15 major clients. 4 ongoing developments. A social media following of 200,000 people who care about sustainable design. And a market valuation that grows daily because we actually understand what we're selling. I handed the phone to Thomas Whitfield. He scrolled through, his expression shifting from curiosity to understanding to something like resignation. You've captured the entire demographic we've been failing to reach, he said quietly. Young professionals, environmentally conscious investors, the next generation of luxury consumers. Because we're authentic, Ethan said. We built this company on actual values, not marketing spin. Every material we source, every design we create, every partnership we form, it's all genuine commitment to sustainable luxury. Vivienne's mask was cracking further. We can offer you resources. Capital. The Hargrove name still carries weight. In a dying market, I interrupted. Your name represents everything consumers are moving away from. Traditional excess, environmental disregard, old money that doesn't care about new problems. A woman I didn't recognize spoke up from the crowd, Asian, 50s, elegant in understated black. Ms. Castellano, I'm Jennifer Zhao, Pacific Sustainable Development. We've been watching Verde Luxe's growth. Would you be interested in discussing a partnership? We're developing 3 projects in Vancouver that need exactly your expertise. Before I could respond, another voice joined. Robert Martinez, Green Horizon Investments. We fund eco-conscious developments. Your portfolio is exactly what we look for. The crowd was shifting. Not watching a scandal anymore, watching a business opportunity. Vivienne's face had gone ashen. Her gala, meant to demonstrate Hargrove Properties' continued dominance, was becoming a Verde Luxe networking event. This is inappropriate, she said sharply. This is our event. Then perhaps you should have thought twice before inviting the competition, Marcus said mildly. Damien grabbed my arm, his grip tight enough to hurt. Nora, please. Can we just talk privately? 5 minutes. I pulled away, and Ethan immediately stepped between us. Don't touch her. I just want to explain, Damien started. Explain what? I asked. That you're desperate? That your family's empire is crumbling? That you need the woman you called worthless to save you? I shook my head. I don't think so. Isla had been silent, but now she spoke, her voice venomous. You're enjoying this. The revenge fantasy. This isn't revenge, I said, and meant it. Revenge would be destroying you. I'm just succeeding without you. There's a difference. I turned to Jennifer Zhao and Robert Martinez. I'd be happy to discuss partnerships. My assistant can schedule meetings next week. I handed them Verde Luxe business cards, recycled paper, elegant minimalist design. The message was clear, I was here for business, not drama. The Hargroves were irrelevant to my actual purpose. Thomas Whitfield approached quietly. Ms. Castellano, if I could have a word? Not about reconciliation. About business. The board is reassessing our direction. Your expertise might be valuable, separate from family history. I looked at him carefully. Unlike Vivienne and Damien, he seemed genuine. A businessman recognizing a solution, not a desperate family member seeking salvation. My rates are premium, I said. And I don't work with clients who don't respect my vision. Understood, he said. May I call your office tomorrow? I nodded. Ethan handles new client intake. Vivienne had been watching this exchange, watching her board member bypass her to speak directly with me. Watching her control slip away in real time. "Nora," she said, and her voice had lost its edge. Just my name, hollow and defeated. I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since arriving. The woman who'd supervised my destruction, who'd called me worthless, who'd been so certain of my failure. She looked smaller somehow. Older. The cracks in her foundation showing in ways her designer clothes and perfect pearls couldn't hide. "Mrs. Hargrove," I said formally. "I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening." I turned to leave, Ethan and Marcus flanking me. The crowd parted again, but differently this time. Not from shock, from respect. "Wait." Damien's voice cracked across the ballroom. "You can't just walk away. The company needs." I stopped, turned back. "What you need is irrelevant to me. What you should have needed 7 months ago was basic human decency. But you chose cruelty instead." "I made a mistake," he said, and he was actually crying now, tears streaming down his face in front of 300 industry leaders. "Please, Nora. I'll do anything." "Anything?" I asked quietly. "Would you have said that when I was living above a restaurant with $67? When I was rebuilding my life from nothing? When I needed someone to believe I was worth something?" He had no answer. "That's what I thought," I said. "Goodbye, Damien." We left the ballroom, Kenji still filming discreetly, capturing the moment for Verde Lux's story. Not revenge, documentation. Proof that sustainable luxury was the future, and that future was leaving the Hargroves behind. In the elevator, descending from the grand ballroom, Ethan exhaled slowly. "That was necessary," I finished. "But also done. We got what we came for, legitimacy, connections, proof that Verde Lux belongs in this market. The rest was just noise." Marcus grinned. "Jennifer Zhao and Robert Martinez alone make tonight worth it. Those connections could triple our growth." My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia, "Everyone's talking about it. Vivienne just left her own gala. Board meeting called for Monday morning. You won." But I didn't feel like I'd won anything. I felt free. Finally, completely free of the weight I'd been carrying. We emerged into the Seattle night, rain misting down in typical fashion. The Tesla was waiting, but I asked Marcus to hold for a moment. I stood on the sidewalk, looking up at the Fairmont Olympic, at the golden light spilling from the grand ballroom where the Hargroves' world was quietly imploding. 7 months ago, I'd stood outside a different building with a suitcase and nothing else. Tonight, I stood here with a company, partners, purpose, and proof that worth isn't assigned, it's built. "Ready to go home?" Ethan asked. I smiled. "Yes. We have client meetings to prepare for." Because that was the real victory, not the confrontation, but what came after. Building something that mattered more than revenge ever could. The Monday morning meeting with Thomas Whitfield happened in Verde Lux's modest Pioneer Square office. Thomas arrived alone, looking exhausted. "The board voted yesterday," he said without preamble. "Vivienne's been removed as CEO. I'm interim leadership while we restructure." Ethan and I exchanged glances. We'd expected fallout, but not this fast. "The Aurora Tower is being sold at a loss," Thomas continued. 3 other projects are being liquidated. We need to pivot to sustainable development, or we're bankrupt within 6 months. He laid out the terms. Hargrove Properties would contract Verde Lux as exclusive design consultants for their sustainable pivot. Premium rates, full creative control, 18-month contract worth $5 million. Ray studied the contract carefully. "This gives Verde Lux significant leverage, but it also ties your reputation to Hargrove's recovery. If they fail anyway, it could damage your brand." "I know," I said. "But $5 million would let us expand faster than we planned." "Revised terms," I said to Thomas. $6 million. Full creative authority with no board oversight. And one additional condition, Vivienne Hargrove has no involvement whatsoever. If I see her at a single meeting, the contract terminates immediately. Thomas didn't hesitate. Done. She's already been fully removed from company operations. We signed that afternoon. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number, Oregon area code. Ms. Castellano? A woman's voice, older, uncertain. My name is Rebecca Harrison. I think you might be married to my son. I froze. Excuse me? Damien, he goes by now. He's my son. I haven't seen him since he was 3, but I've been following the news, and I saw your name, and I needed to know if you were okay. Damien's biological mother. The teacher Vivienne had destroyed and erased. We're divorced, I managed. 7 months ago. Oh, thank God, Rebecca breathed. I'm sorry, that sounds terrible. But Vivienne is dangerous. What she did to me, what she's capable of. I tried to warn James's second wife, but Vivienne had already isolated her. I've watched her destroy 3 women who got too close to that family. We talked for an hour. Rebecca told me everything, how she'd met James when she was a 4th grade teacher, how Vivienne had been his first wife, already divorced but refusing to let go. How Vivienne had orchestrated Rebecca's removal when Damien was 3, using money and lawyers and threats to erase her completely. She made James choose, Rebecca said. His son's mother or his business partner. She controlled the family fortune, and James was too weak to fight her. Why are you telling me this now? Because I saw what happened at that gala. And I recognized the pattern. She tried to destroy you the same way she destroyed me. But you survived. You thrived. You did what I couldn't. After we hung up, I sat processing everything. Damien had been raised by the woman who'd erased his mother. It didn't excuse anything, but it explained a lot. Sophia called the next morning. Vivienne's moving to Arizona. Her sister's place. Permanent relocation. The board forced her out completely, no severance, no pension. They found evidence she'd been hiding losses for years. There's something else, Sophia said carefully. Damien and Isla broke up. She left him the day after the gala. He's been calling everyone he knows, looking for work. No one's returning his calls. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity. Just nothing. They were footnotes now, irrelevant to my actual life. The Hargrove Properties transformation consumed the next 3 months. Ethan and I worked with Thomas to completely rebrand the company, from traditional luxury to sustainable innovation. The Aurora Tower became Seattle's first net-zero luxury residential building. But the most surprising moment came 3 months later. I was reviewing designs for a Vancouver project when my assistant buzzed. There's someone here to see you. He says he's family. The man who walked into my office looked like Damien but different. Older, maybe 40, warmer eyes. Nora Castellano, he asked. I'm Alexander Hargrove. Vivienne's first son. The one she spent 35 years pretending doesn't exist. Alexander told me his story. Vivienne had gotten pregnant at 19, before James, before the empire. His father was a construction worker she'd deemed beneath her ambitions. She'd given Alexander to her sister to raise in Arizona, then built her life as if he'd never existed. I found out 5 years ago, he said. Birth certificate, adoption records, everything. I've been watching from a distance. Why come to me now? Because of what you did at the gala. You exposed her for what she really is. I realized I wasn't the problem. She was. He paused. And because I think I can help you. Alexander worked in sustainable construction, had for 15 years. He'd built a successful company in Phoenix specializing in eco-friendly commercial buildings. I have contacts throughout the Southwest, he said. Projects that need exactly what you offer. But more than that, I have something Vivienne tried to bury, the original Hargrove Company charter. He pulled out aged documents. Before Vivienne took over, the company was founded on sustainable building principles. James's grandfather started it during the Depression, focused on efficient, responsible construction. Vivienne buried that legacy when she pivoted to luxury excess. The documents proved Alexander was the eldest Hargrove heir, with legitimate claim to the company name and legacy. Why haven't you challenged them? Because I don't want revenge. I want restoration. He looked at me directly. I want to partner with Verde Lux to rebuild the Hargrove name into what it was supposed to be, a leader in sustainable, responsible development. We spent hours discussing possibilities. Alexander's construction expertise combined with Verde Lux's design vision could create something unprecedented. This will bring Vivienne back into your life, Alexander warned. Are you ready for that? She doesn't get to control my decisions anymore, I said. If this partnership makes business sense, her feelings are irrelevant. We formed the alliance that week. Verde Lux and Hargrove Sustainable, Alexander's newly renamed company, became sister organizations. Then came the legal challenge. Alexander filed his claim to the Hargrove property's legacy, supported by documents Vivienne thought she'd buried forever. The board saw an opportunity and offered Alexander the CEO position. Alexander accepted, with one condition: Verde Lux would remain the exclusive design partner, with equity stakes in all new developments. The announcement was scheduled for a press conference in Seattle. Alexander insisted I be there. Vivienne arrived uninvited, bursting through the doors like a ghost returning to haunt her own funeral. She'd aged dramatically, gray streaking her hair, deep lines around her mouth. You have no right, she hissed at Alexander. I gave you up for your own good. You were a mistake. No, Alexander said calmly. You were the mistake. You spent 35 years building an empire on erasure and control. Now it's being rebuilt on truth and responsibility. Vivienne turned to me, eyes desperate. You did this. You poisoned him against me. I met him 3 weeks ago, I said. His anger at you has nothing to do with me. That's all yours. She looked between us, the son she'd abandoned and the daughter-in-law she destroyed, now standing united in the wreckage of her legacy. Something broke in her expression. I built everything, she whispered. Everything you're standing on, I created. You built it on cruelty, Alexander said. And now we're building something better on its ruins. Vivienne left without another word, security escorting her out as cameras flashed. I felt nothing watching her go. Just completion. The press conference continued. Alexander outlined his vision for Hargrove Sustainable, a return to the company's original values, amplified by Verde Lux's design expertise. Later, at the celebration dinner, Rebecca Harrison sat between Alexander and me, 3 people Vivienne had tried to erase, now reshaping the legacy she'd corrupted. My mother used to say, Rebecca shared, that what we build matters less than why we build it. Vivienne built for control. You're building for purpose. That's why you'll succeed where she failed. Alexander raised his glass. To building better, not just bigger. My phone buzzed. Sophia, Vivienne's leaving the country. Permanent relocation to France. She won't be coming back. I showed the message to Ethan. It's really over. No, he said, squeezing my hand. It's really beginning. For years after Vivienne threw me out with $67, I stood on the rooftop of Verde Lux headquarters, our own building now, purchased not rented. 10 stories of sustainable design in the heart of Seattle's Pioneer Square, a monument to what could be built from nothing. The company had grown beyond my wildest projections. 50 employees, offices in 6 cities, annual revenue approaching $40 million. Our partnership with Alexander's Hargrove Sustainable had revolutionized eco-conscious development across the West Coast. But numbers weren't what mattered most. Mrs. Takashi still brought me lunch every Tuesday, refusing to let success erase humility. Kenji worked as Verde Lux's social media director, his channel now documenting sustainable design for 3 million subscribers. Ray Crew had joined us as CFO, 18 months sober and rebuilding a life he thought he'd destroyed forever. Sophia had left her corporate accounting job to open her own firm, specializing in sustainable business consulting. We worked together often, two women who'd chosen authenticity over approval. And Ethan, my partner in every sense, stood beside me now, our wedding scheduled for next month. Small ceremony, meaningful guests, values over spectacle. Thinking about the journey, he asked, knowing my reflective moods. Thinking about the private jet, I admitted. It was waiting at Boeing Field, chartered, not owned, because we believed in resource sharing over excess. Tomorrow, we'd fly to Phoenix for the groundbreaking of our largest project yet, a sustainable mixed-use development designed in partnership with Alexander, funded by investors who valued ethics as much as returns. The invitation I'd received last week sat in my office drawer. Hand-delivered, expensive cardstock, familiar calligraphy. Damien Hargrove requests the honor of your presence at his wedding to Emily Chin. The Seattle Asian Art Museum. He'd found someone new. An architect, Sophia had told me. Someone with her own career, her own money, her own sense of self. I hoped he'd learned something, that Emily wouldn't face what I had. I'd sent a polite decline and a generous gift, a donation to a sustainable design scholarship in Emily's name. Not forgiveness, exactly. Just release. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. Ms. Castellano? A young woman's voice, nervous. My name is Christina Hargrove. I'm Damien's daughter from his first marriage, before you. I just found out about you, about what happened, and I needed to call. First marriage. Another woman erased from Hargrove history that I'd never known existed. Vivienne did it to my mother too, Christina continued. Threw her out, erased her, made my father choose. I grew up thinking my mom abandoned us. I just learned the truth last month. The pattern repeated across generations. How many women had Vivienne destroyed before me? I'm starting college next year, Christina said. Studying sustainable architecture. I saw your work and thought, maybe you'd talk to me sometime? Not about family drama. About building something that matters. I smiled, thinking of all the people who'd helped me rebuild, Mr. Takashi, Ray, Marcus, Rebecca. The chain of hands reaching down to pull others up. I'd like that, I said. Come by the office next week. We're always looking for interns who understand why this work matters. After we hung up, I told Ethan about the call. He shook his head in wonder. You're collecting Hargrove refugees. I'm helping people Vivienne tried to break, I corrected. There's a difference. The sunset painted Elliott Bay in shades of gold and rose. Somewhere in France, Vivienne lived in exile from the empire she'd corrupted. Somewhere in Seattle, Damien prepared for another wedding, hopefully having learned from his failures. Somewhere in Oregon, Rebecca taught her final semester before retirement, content with a life built on her own terms. And here I stood, Nora Castellano, not Hargrove, never really Hargrove, looking out at a city where I'd been destroyed and rebuilt myself into something unbreakable. Ready to go? Ethan asked. Dinner at Sakura House. Your favorite table. I took one last look at the skyline. The Space Needle still pierced the gray sky, unchanged and indifferent to human dramas playing out below. But I had changed. From a woman who measured her worth by others' approval to one who built value through purpose. From someone who'd lost everything to someone who discovered that everything worth having couldn't be taken away. Tomorrow, the private jet. Not to prove anything to anyone, but because we had work to do, projects to build, lives to impact through design that honored both people and planet. The journey from that motel room to this rooftop had taught me the most important lesson: worth isn't assigned by others, validated through wealth, or measured in revenge. It's built, deliberately and daily, through choices that reflect values over vanity, purpose over pride, authenticity over approval. I linked my arm through Ethan's, the simple silver ring catching the fading light. Let's go home, I said. Because home wasn't a penthouse or a building or even a city. Home was knowing exactly who I was and being proud of the person I'd become, not despite the fall, but because of it. The woman Vivienne had thrown out as worthless had built an empire on worth she'd defined herself. And that was the only validation that had ever mattered. 4 years ago, I'd stepped off that private jet in my mind, broken, humiliated, with nothing but a suitcase. Today, I would board one for real, whole, successful, surrounded by people who valued me for exactly who I was. Not as Vivienne's replacement daughter-in-law. Not as Damien's discarded wife. But as Nora Castellano, CEO, partner, mentor, and architect of her own destiny. The title Vivienne had given me, worthless, had become the fuel that built Verde Lux. The exit she'd orchestrated had become my entrance into a life worth living. And the son's replacement she'd feared? That was never the point. I'd replaced an entire way of thinking, her way, with something better, something sustainable, something real. As the Seattle skyline glowed in the dying light, I realized the truth. I hadn't returned with her son's replacement. I'd returned as my own. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.